What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. I'm Johners, and tonight I'm going to be taking you through another double episode, this time of NXT from Full Sail, looking at the 26th of December episode and the 2nd of January from the WWE Network. This show from the 26th of December will feature a four-way #1 contenders match, with the winner going on to face Shayna Baszler for the NXT Women's title at Takeover Phoenix. We'll focus on that in a bit. There will also be a match tonight between the Undisputed Era versus Heavy Machinery for the NXT Tag Team titles, so a lot on the line tonight. This should be an amazing episode of NXT and hopefully an entertaining episode of Wrestling with Johners. Now, for those of you that watched the 2nd of January episode of NXT on the WWE Network, you know that they spent a fair bit of the evening recapping the previous 12 months, and we'll also have a look at some of the highlights of NXT from 2018. And they also spent a fair bit of the show going over the 2018 year-end awards nominees. So I think they're planning to announce the winners on WWE.com or maybe next week's episode of NXT. Now, we're not going to be looking too much at their nominees for these awards, but instead at the very end of the episode we'll be looking at our Wrestling with Johners NXT awards for 2018, looking at Male of the Year, Female of the Year, Feud of the Year, Match of the Year, and so on. So stay tuned for that. That'll be towards the end of this podcast. Going back to the 26th of December episode of NXT, the first match, as I mentioned earlier, kicking it all off, is the four-way #1 contenders match for the Women's Championship. So the winner of this match will go on to face Shayna Baszler at NXT Takeover Phoenix the night before the Royal Rumble. The four competitors: Io Shirai, Mia Yim, Lacey Evans and Bianca Belair. So Shirai is amazing and one of the brightest things happening in NXT and WWE right now, in my opinion. She's yet to hit top gear yet in NXT, but could be a contender for the NXT title, if not before, definitely after WrestleMania this year. When we see the entrances for Mia Yim and Lacey Evans, both very capable and talented wrestlers. However, the EST of NXT then makes her entrance, Bianca Belair. Whether you like her gimmick or not, Belair is extremely athletic, powerful, charismatic, and so full of potential that she could very well be a top player in the NXT and WWE within the next year or two. Yim and Shirai team up to start the match and a double team Belair before the match goes to the outside. Yim nails a brilliant dive through the ropes, taking out Belair on the steel rampway. But a mere second later, Shirai is flung through the ropes with the help of the bigger and more powerful Lacey Evans, propelling Shirai through the ropes and onto Belair and Yim at ringside. That was a heavy bump that Shirai took there. Shirai and Yim team up again, this time on Evans, with some effective double team moves. Now, as mentioned in a previous episode, Evans is one of the handful of acts going up to the main roster within the coming weeks, along with Heavy Machinery, Nikki Cross, EC3 and Lars Sullivan. Out of these names, I expect Lacey Evans to be one of the acts more likely to succeed. Her look and her gimmick are quite strong and will likely get over with the fans, mainly because of these parts of her character. Her wrestling style is definitely improving. Lacey has pulled off some impressive high spots in various matches in NXT in 2018, but her overall experience is still growing. Some might say it's not quite where it should be, where it needs to be for a main roster call-up. However, if you compare her with the likes of the Iconics or maybe Lana, she is head and shoulders ahead of them already with her ability in the ring, so I think she'll be okay. However, I don't see her as competition yet for the likes of Asuka, Becky Lynch, Charlotte, or dare I say it, Ronda Rousey just yet. However, as mentioned, she does have the look and the character that Vinnie Mac is generally a fan of. Back to the match, we see all four wrestlers pair off, with Yim and Shirai teaming together once again, and Evans and Belair creating a heel partnership, only until the heels start to interfere with each other's pinning attempts to prevent the other from gaining the win. Shirai hits a beautiful springboard missile dropkick, only to be flattened herself by a spear from Belair, with Belair getting a 2 count in the process. Shirai hits a double stomp, a 619, a flying missile dropkick, all on Bianca Belair for a 2 count. Lacey Evans nails Yim with the women's rights, gaining a near pinfall, only to have the cover broken up by Belair. Shirai hits a picture perfect moonsault on Evans for a close near full of her own, only to be pulled from the cover by Bianca Belair, who unceremoniously dumped Shirai over the top rope and to the floor, allowing Belair to hoist Evans into her torture rack slam, the KOD for the cover and the win in just over 13 minutes. So that was an excellent match with contributions from all four wrestlers. But it was Bianca Belair who got the win in impressive fashion and will go on to face Shayna Baszler at NXT Takeover Phoenix on the 26th of January. I'm not convinced Belair will walk away with the championship that night, but it will be a great opportunity to showcase her talents on a bigger stage like a takeover, and it could be one of the highlights of the night. I can't wait for that match. Then we see Jackson Riker versus Mitch Taverna. So Riker is accompanied to the ring by for this match by Blake and Cutler, the Forgotten Sons. Jackson Riker, the former gunner in TNA or Impact Wrestling, doesn't waste too much time in manhandling his opponent for an easy win here. The reports are that the end of this match had to be recorded in front of the live audience 3 times in total to allow Riker to properly execute his finisher, which was a slingshot powerbomb on his unfortunate opponent here after the 2 earlier botches. I'm not convinced that the Forgotten Sons have anything unique or exciting to offer, and I don't hold out much hope for them if and when they go up to the main roster. They're too similar to other acts that have gone before them, with the likes of Sanity already struggling to get any airtime on SmackDown, despite having a more entertaining act all over. When you compare them to the likes of Blake, Cutler and Riker, Sanity, in my opinion, definitely have the upper hand, but they're still not cutting the mustard on SmackDown just yet. I'm not sure the botched finishes before the live audience are going to endure them to the management team unless improvements are made pretty soon. We then see a nice video package featuring the Velveteen Dream. Now, this is an act that could do very well on the main roster. I know that the company are very high on Dream, and the sky's the limit for this 23-year-old wrestling prodigy, in my opinion. I expect to see the Dream on the main roster, tearing it up big time at some point in 2019. Next, we see highlights of the Steel Cage main event from last week between Aleister Black and Johnny Gargano, with Gargano gaining the pinfall victory after interference from the reigning NXT champ Tommaso Ciampa. We see Tommaso Ciampa backstage with Goldie, saying that last week was his vindication. Johnny Gargano listened, and Johnny Gargano followed his lead and pinned Aleister Black. And where does that lead Johnny Gargano? The champ believes that Johnny should get an opportunity at the North American title. Ciampa says that this is everything they've ever talked about in every hotel and on every car ride. They talked about DIY taking over NXT. Think about it, Tommaso Ciampa walks out of NXT TakeOver NXT champion, and Johnny Gargano walking out the North American champion. The possibilities are endless, says Tommaso as the segment ends. Tommaso Ciampa once again playing the puppet master, manipulating his former best friend and once bitter enemy into listening to his every word. I for one would love to see Gargano versus Ricochet at Takeover Phoenix in a few weeks' time. That could be a show stealer in itself, with NXT Takeover Phoenix being the last takeover before the takeover in New York over WrestleMania weekend. How will the storyline develop further between these two after everything they've been through? I'm expecting more twists and turns in the story between Tommaso Ciampa and Gargano. Then we get the main event for hour 1 at the Undisputed Era versus Heavy Machinery for the NXT Tag Team Championships. So Heavy Machinery comes to the ring first to a good ovation from the fans at Full Sail. The commentator states how Otis and Tucker have been undefeated for over 6 months, earning themselves a championship match tonight against the best tag team in all of NXT and possibly WWE at the moment, the Undisputed Era. Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, the first and only 2-time NXT Tag Team Champions, come to the ring and are treated more like babyfaces by the fans at Full Sail, especially when O'Reilly expertly shreds his championship bout, as well as any lead guitarist in history. When Undisputed get onto the main roster, I honestly believe that they could be as over as any group or faction currently on either Raw or SmackDown, or at least they deserve to be, in my opinion. Tucker starts the match by showing some neat groundwork against O'Reilly, demonstrating a lesser known amateur background from the big man. Otis soon gets tagged in, where he shows off his strength and power as he throws Roddy Strong around the ring for fun. With O'Reilly, the legal man, inside the ring, Tucker attempts to get back inside, only to be attacked from behind by Strong, dropping Tucker off the ring apron and flat onto the mats on the outside, back first and with a splat. That was an amazing impact and definitely swung the advantage back in the favour of the Era. O'Reilly and Strong go to work on Tucker in the corner with heavy kicks and slaps, expertly cutting the ring in half. Strong gets tagged in to nail an Olympic slam and then applying an Indian deathlock on the bigger Tucker Knight. Dozovic eventually gets tagged in to flatten both of his opponents before demonstrating his technical wizardry that I'm sure Zack Sabre Jr. would be proud of, with his trademark worm and elbow drop combo on Roddy Strong. Heavy Machinery gets a close near fall with their Hoss Toss double team move for a 2 count. Tucker Knight crashes back down to earth, however, after missing with an impressive moonsault that would have won him the match and the championship had it hit its target. Otis then tries his luck climbing to the top rope. Roddy Strong climbs up to meet the big man, but Otis is just too big and too strong for Roddy Strong to pull off the attempted suplex by himself. Kyle O'Reilly then helps his tag team partner with a Tower of Doom assist, allowing Strong and O'Reilly to superplex the massive Dozovic to the canvas. That was very impressive, but Strong could only manage a 2 count. The match ends when Strong and O'Reilly sets Dozovic up for their total elimination high-low double team for the 1-2-3 pinfall victory and to retain their tag team titles in a highly entertaining match. All 4 members of Undisputed Era then celebrate on the stage area as this hour of NXT goes off the air. Both teams played their part very well in this match, and I think it deserves a solid 3 stars. The 2nd of January episode of NXT starts with a graphic of our main event to come for tonight, the rematch from Takeover War Games, where Matt Riddle stunned his opponent Kassius Ohno with a win in only 6 seconds. To start the show, they replay the 6-man ladder match for the North American Championship, which took place at Takeover New Orleans at WrestleMania weekend in April 2018. Now, I was lucky enough to be at that show, and this was the first match on the card. It went over 30 minutes, and it was a bona fide 5-star classic with amazing action from bell to bell. Huge high spots and bumps, especially the Velveteen Dreams. Huge elbow drop from the top of the ladder onto Lars Sullivan. The spot with the 2 ladders at ringside when all 6 men crashed through the ladders was simply stunning and breathtaking, as well as all of the crazy flips and dives from Ricochet, who was making his NXT debut, along with EC3 in this match. When the match finally ended, I turned to the guy next to me and said, well, that's it. Cancel WrestleMania, nobody can follow that. It was the best match of my entire time in New Orleans, and it was only one of the first ones at that time for me to watch before the remaining 4 or 5 matches at TakeOver and WrestleMania to come the following day. It was just that damn good. The match was of course won by Adam Cole on the night, and Cole was one of, if not the most over wrestlers over that entire WrestleMania weekend, with the possible exception of Ronda Rousey. Everyone was doing the Adam Cole Baby chants wherever you went, up and down Bourbon Street, in the Smoothie King Center, inside the Superdome. Prior to this year's WrestleMania in New York / New Jersey, I will detail my entire time in New Orleans and WrestleMania to get you all in the mood for this year's WrestleMania extravaganza. However, one of the best storylines to have happened in the last couple of years has been the storyline between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, which started when Ciampa attacked Gargano in 2017, all culminating in a huge grudge match at the very same TakeOver New Orleans. The match bookended that TakeOver show perfectly with the 6-man ladder match mentioned earlier starting the night, and of course the feud and storyline still very much alive today, with Gargano being manipulated by the evil puppet master Tommaso Ciampa, as Johnny Wrestling appears to have embraced his inner dark side and allowed his emotions to get the better of him. This match in New Orleans against Ciampa was Ciampa's first match back since suffering a knee injury the very same night that he attacked and turned his back on former best friend Gargano the previous year. This unsanctioned match between the two in New Orleans was brutal. It was emotional. It was violent. It was absolutely brilliant and finished the evening off that night's takeover on a real high, with Gargano getting his revenge on his former best friend. Who would have thought that a year later their story arc was still going and going strong. This NXT from the 2nd of January recaps the NXT Championship match from TakeOver New Orleans between Aleister Black and Andrade Cien Almas. And this match almost gets lost in the mix, as everyone seems to remember the matches between Gargano and Ciampa and the 6-man ladder match for the North American Championship. However, this match had everyone on the edge of their seats and was equally as good as anything else on that card that evening. Aleister Black, of course, won the match and the championship. They then recap the championship match between Ciampa and Black, where a backfired interference from Johnny Gargano caused Black to lose the title to Ciampa in another outstanding match, adding further fuel to that storyline. This was the last time that we saw Black after he suffered an injury at a house show, which led to the Who Attacked Aleister Black parking lot storyline angle, which kept people guessing for a number of months until Johnny Gargano unveiled himself as the attacker. The focus then turns to Undisputed Era and their year of dominance in the tag team division. Their matches with Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch was aired on this edition of NXT, which was an incredible match in itself, but not as good in my opinion as the era's matches and rivalry with Moustache Mountain, Tyler Bate and Trent Seven, which gave us several classic matches and 2 title changes between both teams in their series of matches. The majority of this show of NXT was looking at the end of year awards nominees. However, stay tuned, because at the end of this episode of Wrestling with Johners, I'll be doing my own end of year awards for the NXT brand, based on the last 12 months of TV action from Full Sail, or from what I think has been the best ever year of NXT takeovers from NXT. We then get a recap of the match at TakeOver War Games between Johnny Gargano and Aleister Black in another outstanding match, and match of the year contender that is definitely worth a second viewing if you haven't already. Then on to the match I've been looking forward to, the kind of main event of the 2nd of January episode, Matt Riddle, the King of Bros, versus the knockout artist Kassius Ohno. Now I haven't been as excited about an individual such as Matt Riddle for a long time now. He is definitely a bona fide, not just superstar, but megastar, in my opinion. And 2019 has to be the year where people really start to take notice of this guy. I don't think he'll be in NXT for too long before being called up to the main roster. And I honestly believe that he'll be part of the SmackDown Live brand when the Fox contract starts in October. Fox will be after legitimate athletes to produce a more reality sports-based wrestling show, and not full of silly gimmicks and 2-minute matches with poor storylines. Otherwise, there could be a risk of SmackDown being downgraded to Fox Sports 1, which will not get the viewers and will not have been what Fox or the WWE were expecting from the deal. The King of Bros is the future of the WWE, and I, for one, am glad to be covering here on Wrestling with Johners. Kassius Ohno is the grizzled veteran who was embarrassed by Riddle at TakeOver War Games in November in only 6 seconds, and tonight he is after some revenge for that match. The bell rings and Riddle goes for the same knee strike that took Ohno out of War Games in only 6 seconds, but Ohno was quick to avoid it, instead going for his patented rolling elbow, but Riddle ducks that before pummeling Ohno in the corner with stiff strikes and kicks. Riddle hoists Ohno up for an exploder suplex and a running senton. Ohno gains control with a thrust to Riddle's throat before sending him across the ring with a brutal release suplex. Ohno punishes the King of Bros with a stiff kick in the corner before nailing a rolling senton for a 2 count. This match is already super stiff, as you would expect from both guys, but Ohno is firmly in control, but only up until Riddle plants Ohno with a delayed German suplex with a bridge for a near fall. The match goes back and forth until Kassius Ohno executes 2 successive sentons. Ohno attempts a third, but Riddle brings up the knees before applying his Bro Mission submission, causing Ohno to tap out to the King of Bros in just over 6 minutes. Now that was another fun match with some super stiff strikes from both guys, but just when you think that was the end of the show, Matt Riddle puts his fist out over the top rope with Ohno on the floor to give him a fist bump as a show of sportsmanship. At first, Ohno declines the offer, but eventually gets into the ring, offering his fist bump after all. Riddle accepts the offer, only for Ohno to grab and hold Riddle's arm before running him shoulder first into the ring post. Ohno isn't done there, and with Riddle now on the outside, Ohno sends him first into the barrier at ringside, then into the steel steps, not once but twice, before hitting a rolling elbow. Then Ohno adds insult to injury by giving the King of Bros the fist bump as the fans chant "You tapped out" to Ohno as the show goes off air. As mentioned, that was a really fun rematch from War Games and a good storyline development, showing that Ohno is not happy and that he's not done with the King of Bros just yet. But after 2 successive losses to Riddle, it'll be interesting to see how Kassius Ohno can get one up on Riddle the next time they face each other in the ring.
Finishing Move Limited, specialising in simple, stylish and versatile items to elevate your everyday. Check out their Instagram at Finishing Move Limited and find their elevated essentials range at finishingmovelimited.com.
Now, with all this talk of NXT's end-of-year awards and nominees, well, for what it's worth, I think I'll go ahead and give you my NXT end-of-year awards for 2018. I've got a few categories, and I'm not going to kind of dwell on this segment for too long. First of all, I want to look at NXT Newcomer of the Year. So, I've chosen 2 here. One of them's a little bit of a cheat. The first one is not from NXT America, but from NXT UK, and I'm going to give the first of 2 awards here to Rhea Ripley. So Rhea Ripley, we first came across Rhea Ripley back in the 2017 Mae Young Classic, and I don't think she got past the first round stage there. We saw her again with a different gimmick, a different character, stronger, more heel persona of Rhea Ripley at this year's Mae Young Classic, and she went through to the semi-final. If you may remember that in the quarterfinal, she went up against Tegan Nox. Tegan Nox injured herself on a dive on the outside that went wrong, and she's now out of action, suffering with various leg injuries, knee injuries and tears. Rhea Ripley went on to the semi-final, lost that match, and then she appeared in NXT UK when that brand launched its own TV show a few months ago. Ripley went through to the final of that tournament, faced Toni Storm in the final in a very, very good match, and ended up winning the match and the championship to be the first ever NXT UK Women's Champion. She's been pretty dominant in that women's division ever since, and is defending the title this coming Saturday against Toni Storm in a match that should be just as good as their final encounter a few weeks back. My newcomer of the year for the NXT America brand is, of course, Ricochet. Now, Ricochet is a bit of a darling of the indies, wrestled all over the world. His high-flying flips and dives has been a favourite of many indie promotions and fans all around the world, but he has matured a lot in the last few years, and certainly since his debut in NXT you can see that he has developed a certain persona, character, and adds a lot of story to his matches on top of the amazing array of moves that he has. Ricochet, of course, debuted this year, 2018, at NXT New Orleans WrestleMania weekend in the amazing classic 6-man ladder match for the North American Championship. Ricochet has since gone on to beat Adam Cole to be the North American champion himself, and has been in many amazing matches in NXT in 2018, and I do think that he could be a big firm favourite amongst the WWE audience when he's eventually called up to the main roster. However, at the moment I'm perfectly satisfied with him entertaining the masses on the NXT brand. So congratulations to those 2. Tag Team of the Year, I think there can be only one winner, and that's Undisputed Era. I think they've entertained us from the excellent matches they've had with Moustache Mountain, Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. Even against Heavy Machinery they've had some entertaining matches. But I think from Kyle O'Reilly's entertaining walk down the aisle with his NXT Championship bout in hand, playing it as if he was Jimi Hendrix reincarnated, through to Roddy Strong's amazing array of backbreakers, even Adam Cole, Bebe, being an amazing North American champion and really coming into his own this year. He was part of the tag team that won the championship at New Orleans and helped to provide a little bit of cover while Bobby Fish was out injured. But I think as a faction, they're absolutely amazing. But Roddy Strong and Kyle O'Reilly, definitely the tag team of the year for me. Honourable mention has to go to, and I might be a little bit biased in this, but Moustache Mountain. Their matches with Undisputed Era, firstly in June at the Royal Albert Hall when they won the NXT Tag Team Championships, was fantastic. An amazing match. A good, nearly a 5-star match. Then they had a rematch a few weeks later on NXT TV with Trent Seven selling of his leg injury, Tyler Bate having to throw in the towel. Even Dave Meltzer said it was a 5-star match. That's one of my matches of the whole year, without a shadow of a doubt. And then, of course, in August, Undisputed Era defended their title and regained their title against Moustache Mountain in another excellent match. So a series of matches there, 3 matches, Moustache Mountain versus Undisputed Era. Absolute classics. I actually saw these two wrestle at WWE Access on the morning of WrestleMania this past April in New Orleans, and that was an excellent match as well. But I think, Moustache Mountain, definitely honourable mentions and runner-up to Undisputed Era for Tag Team of the Year, in my opinion. Female of the Year has to go to Shayna Baszler. She's gone from strength to strength to strength. Not only very similar to Ronda Rousey, is she very, very sound in the ring. Her character has come a long way. Menacing, violent wrestling style has just, it's this air of realism that the MMA fighters coming into WWE are demonstrating. Shayna Baszler, I think, has probably been one of the most improved performers in WWE over the last couple of years, and I don't think it's going to be too long before we see her on the main roster, as I mentioned earlier, in a similar vein to Matt Riddle, possibly on the SmackDown brand when Fox take over in October for that more kind of realistic, athletic, sports entertainment side of wrestling, so that more reality based wrestling that Fox should be after. Honourable mention, runner up in this award, I'm going to give to Kairi Sane. So Kairi Sane has always kind of done it for me in terms of her wrestling ability inside the ring, but her character has not quite clicked, and I think when her feud with Shayna Baszler started to heat up a little bit, especially in their match at Evolution and then again at TakeOver War Games, there was a lot more emotion to Kairi Sane and a lot more depth in her character. And she made a believer out of me. Like I say, she's always made me a firm believer with her wrestling style. As it's got towards the back end of 2018, she certainly made a firm believer in me in terms of her character and her ability to sell and show that emotional side. So definitely an honourable mention and a solid runner-up in this category. Male of the Year, I was kind of umming and ahhing between Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano here, but I think when you look at the amount of exceptional matches that Johnny Gargano has been a part of, his feud and match with Andrade Cien Almas at the TakeOver at the early part of the year, I think just before the Rumble 2018, his amazing series of matches with Tommaso Ciampa with some solid 4.5/5-star matches there between the two of them. And then Johnny Gargano's match with Aleister Black at TakeOver War Games. You've got a good handful of matches there that are high 4 stars and even a couple of 5 stars thrown in there. And the common denominator is Johnny Gargano every single time. He's been absolutely outstanding. I think his character work has really come on leaps and bounds over the last couple of years, and this feud with Tommaso Ciampa, with Johnny Gargano being the ultimate underdog and the ultimate babyface, going from that to embracing more of an emotional side, more of a heel characteristics, the dark side of Johnny Gargano, to a point where he possibly joining Tommaso Ciampa to reform DIY, but more of a darker heel side of DIY. Could Johnny Gargano's storyline arc with Tommaso Ciampa end up with a babyface turn? And eventually Gargano winning the NXT Championship? That could be the ultimate ending, and a really good combination of a couple of years storytelling here. Second place, honourable mention needs to go to Tommaso Ciampa for his role in all of this. He's definitely been one of, if not the best heels in NXT and WWE and all of wrestling in 2018 since he returned to face Johnny Gargano in the unsanctioned blood feud grudge match in New Orleans, and their subsequent matches, their street fights, their last man standing matches, top notch, top draw, out of this world, absolutely fantastic. And I think the two of the wrestlers, Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, they know each other so well that it was going to be nothing other than amazing between the two of them. Takeover of the year, I might sound a little bit biased, but I think a lot of commentators have said exactly the same thing, that it has to go to Takeover New Orleans, WrestleMania weekend, April 2018. From top to bottom, all 5 matches were outstanding. I've spoken a lot already about the 6-man ladder match. It went on to the NXT Women's Championship, where Ember Moon defended her title to the eventual winner Shayna Baszler in an amazing match. Then the NXT Tag Team Championships, where you had AOP versus Undisputed Era, with Adam Cole coming out, injured ribs and all, from the 6-man ladder match only 2 matches earlier. Adam Cole was pairing up with Kyle O'Reilly, and the third opponents in this tag match was Roddy Strong and Pete Dunne. And of course, Roddy Strong turned his back on Pete Dunne and pulled Kyle O'Reilly onto the fallen Pete Dunne for the victory. So Undisputed Era manages to retain their tag team championships with the help of Roddy Strong. And of course, the end of the match saw Roddy Strong pulling off the armband, the undisputed armband from Adam Cole, putting it on himself, and officially put himself into the Undisputed Era. Then we had Aleister Black versus Cien Almas, where Aleister Black won the championship, and as I mentioned earlier, this is very much a match that goes under the radar at TakeOver New Orleans. And then of course the unsanctioned match between Gargano and Ciampa. Top to bottom, an amazing match, an amazing card that I was lucky enough to be at, and it really was the highlight of my WrestleMania weekend. I think honourable mention, second place needs to go to TakeOver War Games. The War Games match that main evented this show was probably one of the weaker elements of the show. Of course, it all kicked off with Kairi Sane versus Shayna Baszler, with Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir getting involved. And then we saw Dakota Kai and Io Shirai coming out for the babyface team. Kairi Sane to help assist Kairi Sane, but Shayna Baszler still managed to pull off the win here against Kairi Sane. You had Tommaso Ciampa versus the Velveteen Dream for the NXT Championship, and an outstanding match. Match of the night, in my opinion, was Aleister Black versus Johnny Gargano. Once again, another one of the matches that Johnny Gargano featured in. He had so many amazing matches in 2018, and this really capping off the year for Gargano as far as classic matches were concerned. But as good as TakeOver War Games was, not quite as good as TakeOver New Orleans. Feud of the year has to be Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier. Honourable mention and second place was Johnny Gargano again in his feud with Aleister Black. Of course, it kind of all started with the Aleister Black who attacked Aleister Black in the car park angle, which went on for months and months and months. As the angle was going on, you kind of saw a slightly more shadier side of Johnny Gargano, to the point where he actually attacked Aleister Black in the ring to announce himself as the attacker, leading to their match at War Games. But their feud since then has been top notch, and Aleister Black, of course, has become entwined into the feud with Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. So Johnny Gargano versus Aleister Black, definitely picking up runner-up spot there for feud of the year. Match of the year, I've mentioned it so many times already in this podcast alone, but the 6-man ladder match for the North American Championship at TakeOver New Orleans. The competitors, once again, you had Velveteen Dream, EC3 making his NXT debut, Ricochet making his NXT debut, Lars Sullivan, Killian Dane, Adam Cole, and Adam Cole, of course, was the eventual winner. And the match went about 35 minutes. That's it. They could have ended WrestleMania weekend there as far as I was concerned after that match. I was spent. It was amazing. Everybody was up on their feet. An amazing match. 5 stars in my opinion. Honourable mention and runner-up was Moustache Mountain when they lost their NXT Tag Team Championships to the Undisputed Era, having only just won the titles at the Royal Albert Hall in June. They lost them on NXT TV on July the 11th to Undisputed Era in a 5-star classic. Even Big Dave said it was 5 stars, with Trent Seven doing the most amazing, exquisite, sublime selling job with his knee injury. Tyler Bate having to couldn't see his friend take any more punishment, threw in the towel for Undisputed Era to regain their titles, and being the first and only so far 2-time NXT Tag Team Champions. Final award of the night from me, Prospect of the Year 2019. So looking ahead to this year, I'm going to give you a winner, both male and female. I think for females, Io Shirai. So she was runner-up in last year's Mae Young Classic, losing to Toni Storm at WWE Evolution in a wonderful match. Io Shirai didn't really set the world alight during the Mae Young Classic. She actually botched a few of her moonsaults, not quite hitting the target as well as they were intended. But since then, she's really gone on from strength to strength, certainly as she's been pairing up with Dakota Kai and getting involved in the Shayna Baszler and Kairi Sane feud. And I think what kind of turned me around to Io Shirai was at NXT Takeover War Games, in the match between Baszler and Sane, where Io Shirai came out to help her longtime friend Kairi Sane and to fend off the MMA horsewomen, Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir, and hit a picture-perfect moonsault from the top turnbuckle to the outside in her street clothes, onto the horsewomen on the outside. And then since then, she's been absolutely fantastic. We've seen her a few times on NXT TV. We've seen her covered her on tonight's episode of Wrestling with Johners, on the 26th December episode in the 4-way #1 contenders match for the NXT Women's Championship, and she's been top-notch, top draw, and I think that 2019 is just going to be her year. Matt Riddle is going to be my prospect of the year for 2019, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. He's got the look, he's got the personality, he's got the moves, and I haven't been as excited about an individual as I am about Matt Riddle in a long, long time. So I think the King of Bros could be the king of WWE before too long, and I don't expect to see him in NXT for too long before he's called up. Later on this week, I'll be covering the Go Home NXT UK show ahead of their first ever NXT UK takeover in Blackpool, England. This should be an amazing show, which I'll be covering in detail here on Wrestling with Johners. If you haven't already, please check out our Wrestle Kingdom review show, which you can find on YouTube or any other podcast platform you choose to get your podcasts from, where my friend Chris, Half Decent, and Heather cover their top 5 matches from the January the 4th extravaganza from the Tokyo Dome. As mentioned in last week's NXT UK recap, 2019 is going to be an amazing year for all wrestling fans and for listeners of Wrestling with Johners. And we will be right here covering as much as possible from all of the highlights and all of the shows each and every week. There will be some major developments with Wrestling with Johners as we march into 2019, with plenty of new content coming your way. We're in the process of securing some interviews with people connected to the wrestling business, which will soon be available on this podcast, as well as plenty of new content and different ways to listen to Wrestling with Johners over the next couple of months. More news on this to come. In the meantime, keep listening to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Wrestling with Johners, and if you have any questions or want to get in touch with the show, simply email the show at wrestlingwithjohners@gmail.com. Give us your feedback, get in touch, let us know what you think. You can also get in touch via our Twitter page at withjohners_WWJ. Visit our YouTube page, simply search Wrestling with Johners. You can now follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/Wrestling with Johners. I'll be back in the next few days to give you the go-home show for NXT UK as they head towards Blackpool on Saturday the 12th of January. I will also have another episode of Wrestling with Johners looking at NXT US in the coming days. But in the meantime, please like, please share, please shout about Wrestling with Johners to your friends and family and get the word out there. So that's all for this week. I hope you have a great week. Keep listening to Wrestling with Johners. Take care and speak to you all soon.